So we're going to finish up this compressor today. I've given it a couple of days to dry out, so it's time to get these plugs back in it and close it all up. So first things first, we're going to hit them with a wire wheel, clean those threads up properly. And then I've got a polishing bristle as well. We're going to hit it with that, get all the rust out of the inside, and then move on to some Teflon tape to make sure that the thing seals up properly. Now when I took these plugs out, I had to hit them with the torch a couple of times, so the paint got a little bit messed up. So I'm just taking them outside, hitting them with a coat of black paint, just to stop them from rusting in the future. And then we're moving over to getting this electric motor back on, and then we're going to get this brand new pump put on. Now here I've decided to use a 8" by 1" thick rubber dampening pad, just to kind of isolate the pump from the compressor tank itself, just to reduce vibrations, and it'll help reduce noise. I actually picked it up over at Princess Auto the same time that I was grabbing the dampening pads for the bottom of the compressor tank itself. I figured that it was available, why not try it out? But of course the bolt holes don't match up with the original holes on the top of the compressor tank, so I'm forced to tag them and drill them. Now I center punched these holes, but I could not for the life of me stop this drill bit from wandering. So holes didn't line up very well, but as you can see on the compressor itself, I was blown away. The holes that were in this mat fit perfectly to the pump itself. That was just pure luck. And of course, the hardware is not going to work now, so I'm taking a quick trip over to the hardware store to pick up some new bolts. Sorry, the car's exhaust got in the way. And of course, Teal'c is along for the ride. Home hardware never fails. So I grabbed a 1/2" drill bit at the same time, knowing that these bolt holes didn't line up particularly well. Figured I'd just oversize them a bit, give myself a little bit of leeway. And of course Teal'c is here supervising, making sure I don't hurt myself more than I usually do. You can see I'm desperately trying to angle the drill to get those holes to recenter. And with the pad down, I actually did manage to line those holes up pretty well. Saved them with that 1/2" bit. So at this point, I know everything lines up, so I'm going to glue that down. I'm just using some black polyurethane, same thing that I was using on the floor earlier, really just because I had it already. And then I ordered in some Royal Purple compressor oil, just 100 series is what it was rated for, straight through Amazon because it's just easier sometimes. Now this pump has been sitting for who knows how long without oil in it, so I decided that I'd flip it around, make sure that the oil's going up and down those cylinder walls before installing it. I don't want a dry start on this thing, burn out the ring lines after buying a brand new pump. Now it's around this point that I realized that the oil drain plug for the compressor is actually at the bottom of the pump, which is just going to be a nightmare to get to. So I figured I would carve out some of this pad around the back side, which ended up being a lot more difficult than I had expected it to be. But I did manage to eventually get it after smearing all the polyurethane over the top of the compressor. So just a quick check to make sure it works, which it did. So clean up all of the smeared polyurethane, and then it's time to bolt this thing down. Now I picked up some 3" hardware for this. I decided to double nut it just to make sure that it doesn't vibrate off. I used a regular nut for the primary, and then the secondary I used a, what are those called? A Teflon lock nut. And that's it, she's bolted down. You can see here why I had to cut that rubber piece out. I mean, it still looks like it's going to make a mess when I drain it, but it's better than having to take the pump back off. So now it's time to do a test fit with the belt shield. This thing is a new pump, and it is sitting an inch higher on its dampening pad, and I have no idea what the original center line on the other pump was, so it's best to just put it up, hope that it fits, which it did for the most part. It was just hitting a couple spots along the backside, so I put a couple of marks on it, take it back off, and just a little bit of trimming on it. Once that's all trimmed off, I'm going to remount it, do another double check, and then put the belt on full tension and lock the electric motor in place. I'm using my trusty stick here because I still don't have my pry bars in my shop yet. Now that that's all done, I'm happy, Teal'c's happy. It's time to wire this electric motor into the pressure switch. With the paint dry on the plug, I'm putting some fresh Teflon tape on there and then hitting it in with the impact gun and doing the same thing with the pressure switch, only of course not with an impact gun. That wouldn't end well. It's a single phase electric motor, so it's super easy to wire, white to white, black to black, ground to ground. So I'm moving this thing away from the garage, and I'm going to move it to the side of the shop that I know has a 20 amp 240 plug. But of course before that, the original line that went from the pump into the tank doesn't match up. So I'm going to build an absolute monstrosity just to make this work. I am just going to solder these things together for now. It looks terrible, but as long as it works and I can kind of get this thing going and out of the way and move on to some other things in the shop that really need to get finished. You can laugh at it, that's fine. I'm still laughing at it, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day it worked, so I'm happy. Where was I? Right, so we're putting the bottom plug in, and then I also got some dampening pads for the bottom of the compressor as well. I was originally going to bolt this thing into the floor, but it's just too much work at this point.
Alright, that should be everything. See if she builds pressure. Pretty damn quiet.
And it's at this moment I start to question the accuracy of that gauge. It's looking a little mashed up when you take a closer look at it, so...
It's getting hot, so we're pumping. I'm guessing that gauge is broken.
Ah, there we go. That's a pretty good guess there, buddy.
Sounds like it's making pressure. Oh, she's making pressure all right. Okay, so gauge is broken. Great. Going on.
Okay, so I'm placing an order for a new gauge, but the key takeaway here is that the compressor works and it's done and we're moving on. Now, I haven't recorded much of this because I can't imagine people want to watch me struggle to move gravel around. But if you look closely at the front of the shop, there is a massive lip leading up into the garage, and I have not been able to bring a vehicle in yet. So over the past couple of days, I've been moving gravel over to build a ramp up into it. I got a wood frame that I've been filling in with gravel. It's actually, I took a measurement on it, and it's actually a 12-inch lip, so I've had to move an awful lot of gravel. But this is only going to be temporary, because at some point in the future, the plan is that this is going to be paved. So it's going to work for now. It's going to let me bring vehicles into the shop. It was a lot of work. Took way more time than I'd like to admit. Not the greatest, but it'll let me bring vehicles in.